You press the accelerator, and suddenly, the engine produces much more power. But that extra power doesn't come from a larger engine. It comes from a compact device that uses the engine's own exhaust gases to force more air into the cylinders. We're going to follow that entire process and explain exactly how a turbocharger works from start to finish. Let's start at the very beginning, with the one idea that the entire turbocharger is built around. Here's something most people never think about. An engine is really just an air pump. To make power, it burns fuel, but fuel can't burn on its own. It needs air, specifically the oxygen in air. So the real limit on how much power an engine can make isn't how much fuel you can squirt in. It's how much air you can cram into the cylinder. More air lets you burn more fuel, and burning more fuel makes more power. So the entire game, the whole secret to power, comes down to one thing: getting more air into the engine. Hold on to that idea, because everything a turbocharger does is in service of it. Now, a normal engine just breathes on its own. As the pistons move down, they create suction that pulls air in through the intake, the same way you pull air into your lungs. This works fine, but it's limited. The engine can only ever pull in as much air as the atmosphere naturally pushes into it. That's called natural aspiration, and it leaves a lot of potential on the table. So the question becomes, what if you could stop relying on gentle suction and instead force air in under pressure? Pack the cylinder with far more air than it could ever inhale on its own. That's exactly what a turbocharger does. And the truly clever part is where it gets the energy to do it. Because here's the problem: forcing air into an engine takes energy. You need something to power that air pump. You could connect it to the engine and steal some of the engine's own power to run it, but that's a bit like robbing Peter to pay Paul. The turbocharger's brilliance is that it uses energy that was otherwise being completely wasted. And to understand what that wasted energy is, we need to follow the exhaust. Every time your engine burns fuel and air, it produces hot exhaust gas that has to leave the engine. In a normal car, that gas simply rushes out the exhaust pipe and disappears into the air. But think about what that gas actually is. It is hot and it's moving fast, under pressure. That's a powerful, high-speed stream of energy. And in most of automotive history, we just threw it away. The turbocharger's whole reason for existing is to grab that escaping energy before it's wasted and put it to work. So let's follow those exhaust gases and see exactly how it happens. As the hot exhaust gas leaves the engine, instead of going straight out the tailpipe, it's routed into one side of the turbocharger. And this is where we meet the first of the two key parts. That exhaust gas is aimed directly at a small fan-like wheel with curved blades, called the turbine. As the fast-moving exhaust slams into those blades, it spins the turbine, exactly like wind spinning a pinwheel or water spinning a mill wheel. The more exhaust flowing through, the faster it spins. And it spins astonishingly fast. We're talking tens of thousands, even over 100,000 rotations per minute. Far faster than anything else in your engine. Now here's the key connection, the heart of the whole device. That turbine is mounted on one end of a shaft, a simple metal rod. And on the other end of that exact same shaft sits a second wheel, called the compressor. So the two are locked together. When the exhaust spins the turbine, the shaft spins, and the compressor on the far end is forced to spin at the very same blistering speed. One wheel driven by exhaust you were throwing away, spinning a second wheel through a shared shaft. That is the core mechanism of every turbocharger on Earth. So now we've reached the midpoint, and this is where everything flips. We've been following waste heading out of the engine. Now let's follow fresh air heading in, because that spinning compressor is about to do the real job. While the turbine side handles hot exhaust leaving the engine, the compressor side handles cool, fresh air entering it. As the compressor wheel spins at those insane speeds, its curved blades grab incoming air and fling it outward with tremendous force, squeezing it and packing it tightly together. It's taking loose, low-pressure air and crushing it into dense, high-pressure air. This is the moment the magic actually happens. The turbocharger is now shoving far more air toward the engine than the engine could ever have breathed in by itself. But there's a catch, and it's a big one. When you compress air, you heat it up. Squeeze any gas and its temperature rises, and hot air is a problem because hot air is thin, less dense, which means it actually contains fewer oxygen molecules for the same space. That works directly against everything we're trying to do. We went to all this trouble to pack in more air, and the very act of compressing it is now working against us by making it hotter and thinner. So we need to fix that before the air reaches the engine. That's the job of a component called the intercooler. On its way from the compressor to the engine, the hot pressurized air passes through the intercooler, which is essentially a radiator for air. Cooler air flows across it, usually from the car moving forward, and pulls the heat out of the compressed air. The result is air that is both high pressure and cool, which means it's dense and packed with oxygen. Now, finally, that cold, dense, oxygen-rich air is rammed into the cylinders. And remember the very first idea of this whole video. More air means you can burn more fuel, and more fuel means more power. That is how a small engine suddenly punches far above its size. So that's the complete loop, and it's genuinely elegant when you see it whole. But there's one serious problem we've ignored, and solving it is what makes a turbocharger safe to actually use. Here's the danger. The more the engine revs, the more exhaust it makes. The more exhaust, the faster the turbine spins. The faster the turbine spins, the more air the compressor packs in. And more air makes more power, which makes even more exhaust. If nothing stopped it, this loop would feed on itself and spin the turbo faster and faster until it destroyed itself or the engine. We need a way to cap it. That's the job of a clever valve called the wastegate. The wastegate is a controlled escape door on the exhaust side. When the pressure the turbo is producing, called boost, reaches the maximum safe level, the wastegate opens and lets some exhaust gas bypass the turbine completely, flowing straight out without spinning it. Less exhaust hitting the turbine means the turbine stops accelerating, which caps the boost at a safe level. It's an elegant self-limiting system. The turbo makes as much boost as you want, right up to the safe limit, and then holds it there. There's one more quirk worth knowing, because you've probably felt it without knowing what it was: turbo lag. When you floor the accelerator from low speed, there's sometimes a brief pause before the power really kicks in. That pause is turbo lag. It happens because at low engine speed, there isn't much exhaust yet, so the turbine hasn't spun up to speed. It takes a moment for exhaust flow to build, spin that turbine up to its tens of thousands of RPM, and start making boost. That delay is the turbo waking up. Modern cars fight this with smaller, lighter turbos that spin up faster, twin turbo setups, or electric assistants, which is why newer turbocharged cars feel far more instant than older ones did. That is a complete turbocharger. From the hot exhaust you were about to throw away, spinning a turbine, driving a shared shaft, powering a compressor that crams cool, dense air into the cylinders. So a small engine makes the power of a much larger one. If this helped you understand how your car's turbocharger actually works, go ahead and subscribe for more car breakdowns. Next, we can break down how the engine itself turns fuel and air into motion, how the exhaust system handles all those gases, or how a supercharger does the same job in a completely different way. The more you understand what's happening under the hood, the better decisions you can make as a car owner. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.